We can't hear you, Ryan. You're still muted.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is Goldie, who is your host. So I'll go ahead and start this back over. What a way to start the season finale. So here we go. Thank you, Goldie. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I am finally not on mute. I am Ryan Johnson. I use the he, him pronouns or bruh within the community. I am the co-founder and artistic director of Soul Defined Percussive Dance Company. And for our friends who are new to Soul Defined is an intersection of music, movement, and imagination, providing a multifaceted experience, promoting and understanding and appreciation for African American percussive dance forms rooted in the African diaspora. Now, I'm a scholar, arts activist, performing artist, but more importantly, I am the grandson of Barbara Jackson and the son of Dr. Vanessa Jackson. I'm a bald-head, Black and indigenous hybrid wearing a black t-shirt. Now, we continue to reflect on the violence against Black bodies that has taken place both recently and historically in this country, as well as the embedded white supremacy in our dance and art community. In alignment with our mission, it is essential for us to be visible and vocal with you all at this time. As we begin, we first want to take a moment of silence to honor and acknowledge those Black lives, known and unknown, that have been assassinated by police brutality and hate. Thank you for taking that moment of silence. Now, it is time to dive in. Soul Defined welcomes you to this solution-oriented conversation from what is known as the Washington, D.C. region, which is occupied, unceded territory, the ancestral homeland of the Powhatan, Pamunkey, and Piscataway peoples, and many more whose histories have been erased. It's vital that we acknowledge that the foundation of this country was funded by the sales of enslaved Africans and built by their forced labor. For those of you who are watching, we welcome your voice and your questions to the conversation. We ask that you comment, shout, co-sign, ask questions, send an emoji or more, respectfully. Now, to get things started, if you're watching, please let us know where you're viewing from in the chat. Big thank you to TRJ Bridges for providing ASL interpretation for us tonight. Now, it is time for the Woman of the Hour. I would like to introduce to you today's moderator, someone who I value, I appreciate, and I look up to, Goldie Patrick.
All that for me?
All that for you.
I receive it. Listen, this is how you know I'm working on myself. I received that. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you for this place and Soul Defined for having me. I'm excited. That may be an understatement. It's lit up in here. Like, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that really, really profound and well thought out and really impactful welcome. You know, it says a lot about how you start something when you are able to very clearly and blatantly name why we're here, where we are, and what we're here to do. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And I am going to leave and allow you to take it away.
I get to do anything now. They don't know what they done started. Hey, TRJ, I appreciate you. My name is Goldie Patrick. I am here for the sake of inclusivity. I'm going to describe what I'm wearing also because I am that vain. I am speaking and I have on the beige hoodie from DC, Black-owned business, Nubian Human, that says, remember your why. Word. I'm also going to try to say my name before I speak. I'm excited to be the host. I'm excited to be in this space for a very important conversation and a very timely conversation. And I am overjoyed to be in this space with Dance Place and Soul Defined, two arts organizations and representations of not only the highest art itself, but also the highest integrity in the arts. So thank you. My job is simple. I get to kind of just drive the bus. I'll occasionally turn around and talk to the people on the bus, but I'm just driving the bus here. I usually get to sit in the space as a panelist, so I am thrilled to be here as your host. I'm going to stop talking so that you can know who we're talking to today. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you further. So I feel like it's a little drum roll in my head. First up, I want to welcome to the Zoom room, StreamYard digital space, LaTasha Barnes. Hey, LaTasha.
Hey, Goldie.
How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Oh, it's such an amazing pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Hi,
I am LaTasha Barnes, Tasha for short. I go by the she, her pronouns. I'm in right now in Brooklyn, land of the Lenape people. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia. That's right. DMV, represent always. I'm also an artivist, tradition bearer, dancer, educator, and ethnochoreologist, representing the Ladies of Hip Hop organization. I'm vice president of marketing and outreach for International Lindy Hop Championships. Also serve on the board for the Black Lindy Hoppers Fund, as well as the Frankie Manning Foundation, and a contributing member to Nephra Global Movement Collective, Hello Black Lindy Hop as well. I'm just really excited to be in this space.
Yay! You do all
and I'm sorry, also guaranteed party starter and good troublemaker.
That's the part I needed to know. That's beautiful. And I also want to thank you for naming the land that you're on, because I wrote it down and forgot to do it. And so that I reflect you. I appreciate that. Despite my history and roots in Washington, D.C., I am proudly checking in from the Lenape Wappinger land, also known as Harlem World. So I give thanks to the First Nations that this is their original homeland, and I work in advocacy on behalf of them as well. Let's build the party out a little bit. Becky Ferrell, are you ready to join us? Did I say your last name right?
Farrell, but it's Farrell. Okay. That's all right.
All right, Becky, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are in this gumbo that we're stirring up here?
Absolutely. So great to be in conversation with all of you today. So I'm Becky Farrell. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I reside on the stolen land of the Massawomack and the Manahawk. I'm a white woman with short pink hair, pink glasses, and a bright pink sweater. Can you guess what my favorite color is? I'm the director of programs at Dance USA. I'm on faculty at Shenandoah University, and I am a PhD student in arts administration at the University of Kentucky. I just finished my first semester of coursework. Glad that's done. And like LaTasha, I am from Richmond, Virginia, RVA in the house. So excited.
I love it. Who knew Virginia was going to be cracked like this? Becky, it's so great to have you in all your pink glory. I love it. Well, let's keep the party going. Tim Wilson, are you interested in joining this here conversation and party?
Yes, of course.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Tim?
Yeah, I am not from Virginia. I don't know how I got invited to be with y'all, but I go by he, his pronouns, and I have a receding hairline. I am white. I'm wearing glasses and have a blue denim shirt on. I come to you today from the land of the Clackamas, the Chinook, the Cathlamet, the Multnomah, the Tualatin Kalapuya. So this is a place now called Portland, Oregon, and it's a confluence of two great rivers. So many nations gathered here before settlers came, and they gathered here to live here and trade. So that's why I have a very long list of nations that I want to recognize when I do my acknowledgement. And I grew up in Tlingit country in Southeast Alaska, and worked for 8 years early in the career for the tribe up there. So that's kind of the roots of my work in this space. So I'm delighted to be with you all. Oh, I didn't say what I do now. I'm executive director of Western Arts Alliance, and we are a performing arts platform and a conference and a service organization. And we also are the host of and the home of Advancing Indigenous Performance, which is a national program to create capacity for professional Indigenous performing artists and break down some of the barriers to them sort of working more broadly in this country. And there are many, many barriers, which we could talk about later.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Did you see my eyes light up? Also, Tim, you have a great storytelling voice. I just feel like everything you answer, can you just answer it in a storytelling way? Because it's great.
I'll do my best.
I'm here for it. All right. And last and certainly not least, Melanie George.
Hey. Hi, everyone. I feel like y'all have all this great energy, and I'm finishing up teaching a semester of 4 online courses energy right now. So if I'm a little bit more subdued, please forgive me. My name is Melanie George. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Black woman with curly natural hair. I'm wearing a black jumpsuit, and I have a bright red lip on. I am currently residing in Hudson, New York, which is the land of the Mohican peoples. Although I have a long history with DC, I lived there on and off for 13 years and am the former director of the dance program at American University. Currently, I'm lots of things. I'm a dancer, choreographer, educator, scholar, founder of Jazz's Dance Project, and a visiting professor at Cornish College of the Arts and associate curator at Jacob's Pillow.
Well, that's why you tired, because you do everything.
Because I have everyone's job right now.
Everyone's job. But listen, we appreciate all that you do. Also, hey, audience, let's be real about this. It's a pandemic. And so we are in our homes, which is so real. And we want to offer the grace and the space to acknowledge that. We want to first give gratitude that we're able to be here. This is Goldie that's talking. We want to be, mindful that if at any point, any panelist or interpreter, or even you in the chat, if you need to step away for any reason, this is real life. We acknowledge that if you get a glitch, that's real life. We are not going to pretend like somehow we will wipe away the reality of the world for the sake of this panel conversation. No. If your kids need something, don't shut your kids out. Okay. Acknowledge the babies. If your dog starts barking, we understand. I often ask myself when I'm in spaces of facilitation, why me? Like, why am I doing this? And that allows me to really anchor myself in what I will bring to the conversation or how I will drive the bus. So this bus will have a little tilt to it. It'll have some good Earth, Wind, and Fire music playing, because I assume that I am in this space to offer a voice of someone who has been on the side of producing, has been on the side of funding, has been on the side as an artist, and also has been on the side as a supporter of the arts in both audience and in just giving my money to people who do the art. So I'm going to hold myself accountable for being authentic and creating a space for you all to do the same. Whatever language you are most comfortable using, I encourage you to use it. I think we all have big brains, and that's great. And we all have vernacular and language that we talk in smaller communities. Use all of it. Everybody will learn accordingly. So, we good? Is there anything else that I need to throw into kind of the established culture between us on this virtual digital space? Yes, LaTasha.
I neglected to mention that I am a Black woman with blonde, bronzest hair, beautiful Black woman, excuse me, and wearing a top that is adorned with toucan.
Oh, I'm Black too. Hey, y'all. I'm sorry. I was supposed to say I was Black too. I'm Black.
Hey.
If I was like in a Wu-Tang song, I would be Caramel Deluxe, if that's helpful to anyone for point of reference. All right. I'm also going to, like I said, I'm going to say my name before I speak, just in case that is helping if anyone may have any visual impairments and they want to know who's talking. I'll try to say my name. This is Goldie talking. Let's jump into this. I sent out some questions. I'm going to stay on topic with these questions. I don't want anyone to feel like you have to answer all of the questions. Some people have already talked about being a professor or a student or whatever the case may be. Let's kind of release that answer the question in school feel. And if it speaks to you and you want to answer it based on your experience, go for it. That'll allow us to go deep instead of going kind of shallow and going wide. I want to also acknowledge Antonio in the house. He is our ASL interpreter. So we'll go between TRJ and Antonio. And so the first question on our list of conversation topics is we're talking vastly about the solutions towards inclusion and equity and ending systemic oppression within specifically the dance, but larger the arts community. Let's just get real specific. If you were to name what you believe or have seen the first step that an arts presenter or an organization or even company should really do to institute some type of equitable practice, what would you suggest that first step is and why? And if you have an example of where you've seen this first step work effectively, go ahead, shout out the people who have done it and how you saw that it was effective. So that first question is, what's the first thing they got to do? And why do they have to do that? All right. So with that said, if you are burning to answer this question, you can go ahead, pop your hand up and I'll say your name. And that way the audience will know you're the one speaking. Anybody dying to answer that question? Go ahead, Becky. I see you.
I know. My first reaction was you need to get your house in order. You know, I think they always say, the call is coming from inside the house. So instead of looking externally, what is happening internally? What is your mission? What are your values? Like, how are you having those discussions with your staff and then also with your board? Like, it can't just be one-sided. You got to fix the mess inside before you can do anything external. Yeah, that was my gut reaction.
Clean it up. On your staff and on your board in line with what equitable practices look like and do. All right, LaTasha, I see your hand up.
Yes, I saw both Becky and I lurching at the same time. So I appreciate you. That is absolutely in alignment with my point. And those who have been in conversation with me before know that this is my mantra anyway. And it's acknowledgement. And it's acknowledgement in all its aspects. And people like to take that word and just look at it simply as information acknowledgement or cultural acknowledgement. But just as Becky was saying, and I always take everything the metaphysical next step, the call is coming from within inside the house, inside this house. How about you acknowledge your biases and your issues and your complicities here, in addition to the things that you need to do with your organization, your purpose, your mission, the legacy, your integrity or lack thereof in some instances, what cultures and what aspects of cultures you're representing. For example, if you're claiming that you're representing Black dance, but don't represent the fullness of that, maybe we should readjust our naming conventions and our mission statements and purpose. Also, taking into acknowledgement that not all of us operate or adhere to the same constructs. Some of us have worked our way through some things. So we need to also be sure that we're in conversation with each other about these levels as we go through to figure out how to work these things together. If the point is to continue to serve the community, we have to continue to acknowledge the community. You may not be the one to do all the work, but we still need to make an effort to be in conversation with each other and acknowledge each other in the process.
Okay. Yes. Melanie, go ahead.
I would just add to that, in looking at the behavior of institutions from like June through August, and there was this really rapid response to releasing public relations statements. And that hit me wrong. I'm just going to be really honest. I found it rather frustrating, and it seemed to be a lot of it was for optics. And the same thing I tell students about their art that reflective practice is critical to you being able to do anything. And so I think that people need to take time to listen and reflect before they take action, so that the action is actually something that is sustainable and worthwhile. I think there are some institutions who've probably released statements that they're not at all going to have the capacity to live up to. And it didn't have to be that way. So taking the time to do the things that LaTasha and Becky are naming, that takes time, and it takes a time out, frankly. And it's hard to take a time out when you're releasing a PR statement. I understand the way the world works. I understand the way public relation works within our field. I understand why all of that stuff happened. But if nothing else, 2020 has taught us that the models that we've already having in place aren't necessarily the models that we have to follow. That when the whole world gets upended, you can just change things, and people adapt. So just because releasing a statement, within 48 hours of everyone else releasing a statement is the way that things obviously work, it doesn't mean that we have to continue to proceed in that manner.
If this were church, I would say amen. I'm like, absolutely. Thank you for that. Tim, did you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I want to build off what Melanie and Tasha were saying. I mean, I think absolutely. I felt as a white leader of an organization, prominent, we were under so much pressure. I was under so much pressure to come out there with these statements, which were just, to me, were about virtue signaling. And rather than sort of really being in place. And so what we did instead, our response to that pressure, we got it from board members, we got it from members. So what we did instead was we created a Black Voices blog on our website. And we put up a place, instead of hearing from us, we put up, every month we rotate another Black voice kind of on there. And so that was sort of a step that we took to deal with that kind of pressure. The other thing I want to say is that, in the context of acknowledgement, we did it here today, and it's a really good practice of acknowledging the traditional people of this land. And I think, but one of the steps that needs to happen in my mind is that we need to be an authentic relationship with communities of color. Once we have our house in order, Becky, once we have that, then we need to be in authentic relationship with communities of color. Because so often, predominantly white organizations, what they do is they go out there and they just start something without being in that relationship. And examples of doing this the wrong way are land acknowledgement. I have seen performing arts organizations start land acknowledgements from their stages when people were in live performance, without having any relationship or knowledge of the people of that place. So they just sort of launch into it. They Google it, they find it. Maybe somebody tells them, who are the people of this land, and they begin doing that without any kind of relationship. And nothing is more damaging to that organization than sort of starting that, because people notice and they will see. So I guess that would be my kind of last point, would be just be in a relationship.
Oh, I love what you said. In the month of November, everybody was like, we're going to do land acknowledgements. Have a great Thanksgiving. Okay. So I think you may need to dig a little deeper in what it is. But this is what I'm hearing from all the panelists, is that this move to respond to what seems to be white fear from the leadership in a lot of these organizations with these performative statements or these performative acts of inclusion or diversity or action, right? That's where we need to start. At the first thing is stop doing that, right? Decenter the white leadership voice of fear or reaction, and instead examine and center yourself where your communities are with people who are Black, Indigenous, or of color. And from that space, let them inform what you need to do, whether they're your staff, whether they're leaders, hopefully they're your leadership board, staff, and your audience. And if they aren't those things, you done figured out where the problem is. Okay, y'all are on it. I see you. I'm taking notes. I'm taking very copious notes. I'm going to put them on my wall. I encourage everyone else to do this. We got a lot of jewels here. I'm going to go from what's been said to the question about, I love that there are sirens in the background. Come on, Harlem. I'm going to go and I'm going to throw in this question that is about resources. Because once we talk about that first step of what we do, right, I'm wondering, how do we find resources that help both the artists and organizations. And when I say organizations, I'm not just talking about leadership. I'm talking about staff, programmatic staff, education staff, outreach staff. But what are some of the resources that would allow these organizations to get better acquainted in the work of equitable practice? They could be resources you've used or you've seen other people use or that you're interested in using. It could be book, person, podcast, all a kind of training. What are the resources you would suggest?
I'll just throw out, because I name it wherever I go, the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. If you're not familiar with them, get familiar with them. They've been doing the work for a very, very, very long time. And they actually already have things in place that I feel that a lot of orgs are trying to invent right now, when they literally already have things that are existing to help you get through that work and begin to do that work. And the other thing I'll say, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, remember, brain is tired today, but people are resources. And I think, you know, in line with what Tim said, you know, the simplest thing you can do is to begin to engage in relationship building. And I think some of the times what happens with some of these kinds of conversations is this idea of like, well, what can you give me that I can then take back to my organization so that we can begin to do this thing in this sort of insular manner. But if you're actually trying to, you know, reframe structure or unstructure or whatever the favorite buzzword of the week is this week about trying to, you know, undo the shittiness that's happening, like, you know, the legacy of shittiness that's happening within your org. You know, it's people that you're like, everything you're doing is about how you interact with people. And so if the first thing isn't about relationship building and engaging with communities, all of those other books and things and videos and trainings are meaningless. You know, and the other thing I'll just say too, which is going to probably sound hypocritical because I'm talking so much right now, is dialogue that does not lead to action is just an exercise.
Say it again.
So, dialogue that doesn't lead to some kind of action is just an exercise. And I say this as someone who's been on a lot of these public conversations since May, since COVID shut everything down. I mean, like a lot, like double digits. And like, this is it. This is my last public one. I got to do a thing for Jacob's Pillow on Thursday. And then I'm like, you're going to see a lot less of Melanie in 2021. Because I'm not really sure how much all of this talking is serving people. And I stand behind all of my words, but I'll just say that part of what we're doing is trying to change. And certainly part of change is changing conversations, but even that is still an action. And so just like talking to someone and saying, I hear you, or I'm making space for you, or whatever those words are. And then you go back and you don't actually do anything. I'm not interested in that anymore. Like I'm completely removing myself from those kind of conversations. It doesn't interest me. And it's actually a different kind of labor to pretend that something is going to come out of it when you know that something is not.
Well, let's talk about it, because I feel like that is the conversation, Melanie. I feel like that's it. What does the action look like? Not the talking, not the bringing you into talking. I love this notion of community as resource, right? Like, not an expert, go talk to people that have been here. So my question then, and it's still in the neighborhood of the thing, what is the action? What does the action look like? And it can be as bold and revolutionary as you say. You know, let
me just say one thing. I believe the scariest action and the most necessary action right now is that there are people who need to step down from their power. And I say this as someone who's been in academia for a very long time. Part of the conversations that I'm involved in, because I'm a jazz dance artist who is also a curator and a dramaturg and works on a lot of different kinds of areas with a lot of different kinds of people, is I'm being brought into institutions where people are saying, we know that we only value ballet and modern, but we would like you, Black lady, to come in and tell us about how we might value other things. without changing any of the things we actually have in place, because we don't want to lose our jobs. So tell us how we might figure out how to do A without having to change B. And I don't know that I don't really believe that is possible anymore. I don't believe that everyone gets to keep their power for us, and we're going to have this change that we say that we want. And I know that is a frightening thing. I know that is frightening for a lot of people. But unless you're going to exponentially grow the job market, I don't see how it's possible. So what I am saying to people is, when do you assess that maybe this isn't the role that I should be in anymore? If I say that I truly value this thing, at what point does it mean that maybe I have to step aside?
Okay, I see you, LaTasha.
Okay, I'll stop talking now.
I want you, because you getting the hand popping. Melanie done started it. She dropped the mic. She said the thing. LaTasha, what is this that is burning on you to say and share?
It's all of the things, all of the things. And it's, I'm going to be as respectful as I can.
I mean,
but it's, absolutely the community is the resource. And it's not just in that flippant, okay, from the institutional perspective or the academic perspective, we need to look to the community. Quite literally, everything that anybody is doing in any academy is from the community. So if you're not in conversation with those people where you've sourced these things from, you are wrong. There's not a whole lot to that, as my grandmother would say. It's, for me, and I'm gonna digress from the venting. Solution-oriented wise, from a community aspect, when there have been artists who have been elevated, even if they are not directly representative of the community itself, they are the ones that can be discussed with, have relationships built with, and they know I need at some point to start to bring in more people who are actually authentically of this thing, who actually represent this. And my biggest example of this is quite literally the example of my good friend, who I know is problematic for some, but only as the way institutions present him, but Caleb Teicher. He is representing tap dance, and he's also a Lindy Hopper and a jazz dancer, unbeknownst to a lot of people in institutions, because they don't bother to actually have a relationship with him, just his products. However, Caleb, as a community member of the jazz dance community, is tied in with myself and others. And I am still technically, I call myself a baby in the Lindy Hop and jazz community, but I dug in deep and sat at the feet of my elders to get what they wanted me to have before they transitioned. In that realm, Caleb's valuing of community, in as much as it has informed his dancing, his creative process, is paramount. So when an institution like the Joyce came to them and said, we should make a piece, Caleb said, yes, we should do this, but it's not going to be underneath my company. It's going to be with this person, this person, this person, this person, because they are my brain trust. They are how I look at the world, and they are how I want to influence others to look at the world from this platform, since you want to offer this to me. And we have made it our mission to make sure that everything under that moniker goes forward with that in mind. This is a community project. This is a community space. This is a community effort at building knowledge and incorporating the dynamics of that type of relationship everywhere we go. From that, other institutions that got involved because of the Caleb Teicher name, like acknowledging the way the world, quote unquote, works, also, when they agreed, we're like, oh, we're getting this. And it's like, you're also getting all of us. You're welcome. No, you don't have a choice in that matter. So in that, they had to open up their space for us to present digital variations of this community space, which has then seeped out into the broader world, as I fortunately and so gratefully was able to bring in members from my house dance community into this space to learn about jazz and Lindy Hop, to continue to build the connectedness of the Black dance continuum. Yeah. In that, too, individual organizers who were already in collaboration with each other, that House Party, though, and Layer Rhythm, were able to collaborate and are now doing their own community-based dialogue, relationship, information building, knowledge share, because of the experience that they had from this one project. So these other organizations, community-based organizations, higher level institutions, are now being forced to look at the value of actually operating underneath the guise of the community, as opposed to just what is going to fuel their profit. or what is going to continue to fuel trends. So that for me, it's not just talk about looking at the community. Give the community space to build, and it will build for you.
I hear that. I just want to reiterate what has been said so far, because like I said, I'm taking notes because y'all are dropping gems so far. This conversation of when will leadership in organizations that does not speak to this virtue, these principles of equitable practice and inclusion, when will they be either removed or remove themselves so that new leadership that actually reflects and speaks to these ideas of becoming more equitable be able to be in place, so that individuals aren't tapped or commissioned to bring their specific cultural expertise to serve an organization? And when do presenting or producing organizations stop just commodifying the art and the labor of Black, Indigenous, and person of colors that may be artists? And when do they actually start investing in the communities that those persons represent? Also, when is a space created for individuals to practice the cultural sharing that they do in their community, to say, I come with 4 other people, we all doing what we do, don't ask no questions, give us money, right? So Becky and Tim, I want to kind of shift over to you, because you guys both have such unique positions in kind of the larger presenting, producing, and funding worlds. What have you seen around these topics of leadership being ready to move, to let somebody else in? And how do we create more spaces that allow artists to practice these cultural practices that reflect their communities? Either one of y'all can take a stab at that. It's really the question of resources. What resources do they have? Who's going to start? Becky?
Start.
All right, Becky,
yeah.
Go to Tim.
I mean, I will say, talking about, white leaders making space, Dance USA just finally, after 40 years, has our first BIPOC leader. It's always been run by white females or males. This is the first time. I call it these incremental victories that hopefully lead to more impact in the field. So I'm excited to see Kelly Uduse, who will be our new executive director starting January 1st, how that will impact the organization, which I am very excited to see what happens there. From a curatorial perspective, anytime I say, if you're not seeing certain representation in any of my panels, it's because I didn't do the work yet. I'm not just going to throw people on there, like ask for, give me a list of people that are this, so I can put them on. I can't do the checklist. So if people are not represented, it's because I haven't done the work yet. And I'll be very transparent about that. And I think that those relationships take time. I think what Melanie and LaTasha were saying, the community building takes time. It can't just be a 2-minute conversation or something that happens over a month. It takes time to build out that relationship and that trust. And I think, especially for white people, especially for white women, when you're accessing that learning from populations, you need to acknowledge their labor in your evolution. I think it's very important that that is acknowledged in that space.
And I'll follow by saying a couple things. One, I've been in my position a very long time, and I've already announced my exit. And so we are in a 2-year kind of succession planning process. And EDI is definitely going to be very much a part of that, from the process itself to how we go about it, to what we're looking for and all of that. Our board now is majority LGBTQ BIPOC. And so this is the stakes for our board are really high. And so we are starting that thing, giving it a long ramp, mostly because of the pandemic. Because I don't know about Dance USA, but at WA, like, revenue is just gone, evaporated overnight. Our membership they're all, performing artists and performing arts centers. Everybody is essentially shut down. And so that is making this process, just in terms of resourcing, it much more challenging, because our budget is this year is a fraction of what it was last year. So we are in a deeply difficult position. Having said that, though, we are committed to processes of stepping aside and empowering at a grassroots level the people that need to be leading programs. So first example is in 2015, we did an Indigenous program, and WA went out and raised about $60,000, $70,000 for this Indigenous program as a part of our conference. And then we essentially turned that resource over to a committee of 15 Indigenous artists and arts leaders from around the Pacific Rim, most of whom had never even been to WAL. And they planned, they decided on the program, they decided on the protocols, they selected the speakers, they framed all the topics, they designed the entire program. And it was hugely successful, not just for the participants, which were a majority Indigenous, but for our members and for WA itself, because that sort of giving up power and giving up space came back to us. We earned trust and the respect of those Indigenous participants. So that's our model. So last year in 2019, we did a Black Arts program in Los Angeles, and it was rooted in Leimert Park, which is the historic Black center of Los Angeles. And I spent about 6 months building relationships with Black arts activists and leaders in that community. And again, we formed a committee, and that committee designed the program. They selected speakers. We had Patrice Cullors from Black Lives Matter as our keynote. They designed the program, they structure it, and they plan it. And that's, I mean, so there is a way, even within the limitations of our predominantly white organization, that we can build initiatives that are rooted in community. That so we are not it's not top down, it is bottom up. And that's our commitment in sort of doing this work.
That is an amazing example, Tim. I applaud that organizational approach and work. And Becky, also, I love what you said just about the checklist. Like, I didn't do the work, calling it out. I feel like you guys have been so authentic and so honest. And that is what this conversation and work requires. It requires calling out what it is, what it ain't, and what it needs to be. I'm about to take my little water break. I'm drinking from my little Howard mug and stump for a little bit. Look back over my notes while we go and we get the artist spotlight, which is an important part of this entire conversation, to remember that we want to uplift and celebrate artists that are doing this work and creating a space for the artists that continue to do the work. So I'm gonna stop talking, but we're gonna come back and finish talking. But right now, we're gonna take a break for the artist spotlight. Hey.
Hey, this panel is on fire. For sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Quinn Johnson. I am co-founder of Soul Defined and excited to be doing the artist spotlight. I should say that I am a Black female with brown locks and a Black sweatshirt, also from Nubian Human, from Dope Society. I will show my Fulani sweatshirt. And the artist spotlight today, I am happy to say, is Soul Defined. Soul Defined seeks to provoke, inspire, and hold space for cultural dialogue and reflection by presenting historically informed, intellectually rigorous, and immersive performance experiences and dance engagement activities. We weave together the techniques, the history, and aesthetics of tap dance, body percussion, stepping, and theater to forge works that reclaim Black narratives. We are actively engaging in cultivating conversations, challenging best practices, and interrogating systems to support the equality of self-identified Black, Indigenous, and persons of color that are also artists. And pre-COVID, Soul Defined was touring 2 evening lead performances, as well as we were offering community engagement programming and our Soul Steps Arts Education program, offering residencies and workshops to youth. And today we continue to do all that amazing work through percussive dance, just in a virtual world. So tonight we are sharing Cuckoo on Taps from our evening length show titled Vibes. This is a magnetic performance that takes viewers on a journey back into time with a live DJ spinning the sounds of the 90s and fusing our blend of styles, our toe tapping blend of styles that turns any venue into a big party. So Vibes premiered at the Hip Hop Theater Festival at the Kennedy Center in the fall of 2018. And I am excited to share with you all Cuckoo on Taps. Enjoy.
Listen, where's my little, hold on. It was a whole thing. I was over here trying to sing and do the step of the little piece of the thing. It was good. That was beautiful. I love Soul Defined. I love Soul Defined. And that was the perfect break that we needed. I also reviewed my notes. Y'all are lit. I'm going to tweet all of these things. Make sure, once this is over, we get a chance to look back on it because the comments are full of love and reflection. And you guys are so informative and inspiring. Really, really, you are. I want to continue the conversation where we left off. Very rich conversation about accountability, about leadership shifts, and about funding, and how the multiple pandemics have affected the art sector and the funding structure and what we've known in that. And I want to jump in that space to get your perspective about, with this accountability of what inclusion looks like and what proper practices look like, right? When we talk about accountability, we can take our funding means of accountability, right? And we can redistribute funding accordingly. What suggestions would you make around the necessary shifts and changes that need to be made in the funding for dance organizations? And you can be as specific as you want to about who needs money or who has too much money, or you can just kind of talk generally around what you would like to see as an equitable practice when it comes to funding dance organizations. With that said, who wants to talk about the money first?
Well, I'll talk about the money, but I don't want to talk about organizations. I want to talk about artists.
Yes, let's get into it.
What the thing that I'm hearing from the artists that I work with and from my friends is that, the pandemic. Well, okay. So the thing that we all observed is that the pandemic hit, and we were able to out loud recognize that our field is built on a house of cards. Right? The entire infrastructure just collapsed in literally 4 weeks. Right? So that was not something that we did not already know. We just didn't have to contend with it until everything got shut down. But the conversations that came out of that, that were generated by artists, keep coming back to this idea that we're not investing in artists, right? I've seen multiple articles just recently written by Kimberly Bartosik. Raja Feather Kelly wrote one, and they keep coming back to, please invest in us, please give us a home. And I think the way that funding often works is that we're investing in these individual pieces that may collectively make up a season, but they don't necessarily collectively make up a career for an individual artist. I was really struck by New York Live Arts just announced the winner of this latest round. They have an award that they give. I forget what the title of the award is, but it went to Faye Driscoll this year. And the thing that struck me about this is that award comes with 2 years of full-time salary and benefits. And that feels so progressive in terms of how we invest in people's lives, because they can't make art if their lives are not healthy. They can't make art if their lives are not sustainable. So yes, I understand that the money is coming from institutions. And I don't think I'm necessarily equipped to talk about how philanthropy works in this country, which is another mess, right? That's how much I'm equipped to say that it's a mess. But what I want to come out of this is that the people who are still able to have careers in 2022, because it is very uncertain for a lot of people that we know right now. A lot of people. The people who have figured out how to survive beyond 2022, how are we investing in them long term? It's not an accident that Kyle Abraham, who's so brilliant, has success. Institutions invested in him over a 3 to 5 year period during his up and coming phase that allowed him to have the success that he has now. That's not an accident. That was strategy. So where's our collective strategy for the field to invest in individuals, because the individuals make up the field? I didn't say anything concrete about money.
No,
but it's structural, right? It's
I think what you said around a 2-year salary with health benefits as a model of investing in the career of an artist. Yes, tweet that, write that, tap that, something. I love that. And I think that's a really strong example and a model. Becky, do you have something that you wanted to add?
I have so much to say about money. Oh my gosh. Okay. And to jump off of what Melanie said, the reason I even applied to get this PhD in arts administration is because there was no infrastructure for independent artists, gig artists, 1099 workers. So that's my whole dissertation is on the protection of independent dance artists. That's the reason I'm even doing this, because it's ridiculous. It all fell apart. And for an industry where the artists are the heart of it, they were the first one to be bankrupt. How does that make sense? Why do EDs still have positions when there are no artists there to do the work so I had a lot of feelings. I'm glad I got into that program with my lengthy essay about how I was really big mad about the entire industry. But when I think about funding, I really think, money has power. And I think that the funding structures have to be decolonized. Applications encourage elitism. That's something that we know, right? They're laborious. Yeah, we need to dismantle how they make you have all these supplemental materials. They have to look a certain way. You have to write these long narratives, and they have to sound a certain way. And that's all white supremacy right there. And that whole labor that we're putting on the artists is unacceptable. And they're not even getting paid for that labor of doing that application and pulling everything together, because what they're applying for is usually a project or a tour. So they're not even having any sort of income for that work that they've already done. That is cultural work right there that people need to be paying for. So I think that the whole structure needs to be reassembled. So.
Yes. Ooh, decolonize the application process, because it's stupid and it's biased and it's built in white supremacy delusion. Don't do it. I don't know how I'm going to get a fellowship, but I'm with you. I'm not filling out that application. I'm going to call them on the phone and tell them why they need to give it to me. Are there any, I think we're onto something though, because we're talking about changing the perspective of begging or asking for money as the artist, instead understanding investing, that you don't have a company, an organization, a foundation without the artist. So how do we shift that to really enforce supporting the artist? Are there any other ideas around the funding model, and what shifts can we make or change? Tim, let me hear what you think.
I have a model. I mean, and I think Melanie and Becky are absolutely right. These are structural issues. They are profound, deeply held structural issues that have to be addressed. And, there aren't very many models, I think, out there that really work, especially for public funding. Because public funding is there's government involvement, there's legislators, there's political pressure, there's all these different things that sort of make it very different than private philanthropy. But I think there are some models that are worth looking at. A couple of years ago, the Canada Council shifted giving for First Nations arts and culture in Canada to its own stream. It used to be a part of kind of like the National Endowment, it was even better than the NEA. But the Canada Council used to have programs set up within the various discipline programs at Council. And so an Indigenous artist could apply through a special kind of track and get into funding for dance or for theater or music. But there was some central kind of direction to that program, but it was all of that initiative was a kind of a stepchild, if you will, to other programs. So a couple of years ago, they made First Nations giving its own stream. It is now one of the 6 major funding streams at Canada Council. And so they've completely restructured that. It's entirely Indigenous led, and the panels are all Indigenous panels. But even in Canada, and they're further ahead in many regards than we are, but even in Canada, they came up against kind of limits. Like for the original concept, which I think is the model that we're looking for, was to take the decision-making out of Ottawa and put it into community. So it would go, a decision-making for an activity or a work or a project, a program, an artist would be made in the community of that artist, right there in community. And so it would be up to the community how to disperse funds and how to fund work, because those people, they're already in relationship. And so that work would all be funded right there. And I think that there's real merit in that model of getting decision-making decentralized, decolonized, and closer to community. Now that's going to be, there's all kinds of reasons why that's going to be hard, but but again, I think largely, especially in public funding, it is a huge kind of cataclysmic change that's kind of really needed here.
Oh, that is helpful. I wrote that down too. I love that model. Could you imagine if smaller communities could decide what got funding? And then you wouldn't have that question of, well, nobody's going to come see it. And they're like, yes, we are. That's why we picked that thing over the other thing, because we don't want the giraffes to come to this city. We want the tap dancers to come. This would be great. LaTasha, do you want to add something to the model?
Absolutely. So I am grateful that I am communicating from a place of seeing this work successfully so far. Serving on the board of several nonprofit organizations now, no stress there, but working with them to establish funding specifically in relation to a community that has been underserved, underrepresented, and unaccounted for in a way that felt meaningful to that community. Overarching organization said, this is a fund that we need to create within our organization to serve these people. Like, yes, that's great. And they were in conversation with members who are looked to as leaders amongst that contingent of this global community. Those leaders were put in charge of how those funds were going to be distributed. And instead of just staying within the confines of that larger organization, those leaders said, yeah, we got this. Bye. Thank you. We're going to stand up as our own organization and actually control the vetting, the distribution, all of that. And of course, that seemed at odds with the overall mission of the higher organization. However, it has only served to continue to embolden their ability to serve the community at large, because now they've given the funds to those who are closest to those who need it and who know what is actually in need. And now this particular sector of money is not in competition with a broader, more globalized mission. It's actually serving one sector of this broader community. And I'm speaking specifically of the Frankie Manning Foundation, their establishment of the Fund for Black Lindy Hoppers, and the Black Lindy Hoppers leadership taking said funds and establishing its own organization to be in service to the community, but for the purpose of bridging the gap of information access and power that has come about because of how the community has been served at large. So it's working right now, thankfully. We're able to fund projects in Uganda and Mozambique, as well as in Cleveland and in Minneapolis and other places that have larger and smaller contingents of young Black dancers who are trying to grow, as well as young artists and historians too. It's not just about the dance, it's about the fullness of the community. Also, my favorite example right now is tethering off of that same community initiative that we were talking about before. And if it wasn't clear before, I'm talking about reciprocal relationships. If you are not communicating about what you wish could be possible for you, people can't help you. In that, some of my friends had some traumatic situations come about because of the pandemic and loss of housing and things like this, and now find themselves living in a spacious, palatial housing that actually the entire community came together and crowdfunded and bought and paid for monthly so that we have a performance space. We have a space to grow. So it's not just about getting these funds from institutions to the community. It's also about getting the information about organizing funds to the community so that a community can build for itself.
That's so, my wheels are turning when you mention that. I think about the idea of how do we acknowledge and honor culturally specific models of economic development and sustainability that are outside of this traditional white kind of elite framework within philanthropy of, I need to see your tax statement. They're like, we didn't do that. We sold fish dinners, but it was effective and we got the money that we needed. Like, how do we create a space where those models that work in smaller communities can continue to be lucrative without draining the resources of the community, but we can just support them being able to operate in the models that they do? I'm also thinking about this idea of the individual artists, right? Melanie, your point around investing in them. I personally am, as a writer, write within theater and television and film. And there is this model that's taking place where they're like, if you book me, I got to have 12 people with me that you got to give $10,000 to each. You know, it's no longer the look at what I've signed and what I've done. Instead, it's this model of if you are going to give money to me, you must also give money to 10 other people, not just opportunity, because you would just be like, oh, you could be a PA. No, but the money in this amount of dollars for this person. And each year of my contract, I want this additional $50,000 to go out to 5 people. So there are a couple of models that I heard. Yes, Melanie.
Yeah, I've been talking about this with people in other conversations, private conversations, about how obsessed I am with this HBO deal that Jeremy O. Harris has. Whatever you think or don't think about Save Play, that is not the conversation. I'm talking about the fact that he has a deal with HBO for him to produce stuff. And as a result, he also had it put in the contract that they put aside monies to fund an emerging Black playwright for Broadway. And this is the key thing, and fund someone who had support at the start of their career, and that support did not last, so their career could not sustain. And I have been obsessed with this idea about how we invest in people's careers as opposed to their individual projects.
Yes, he did that through a fellowship that he created through the New York Theater Workshop. And then we also recently, the news just came out, I think maybe 2 days ago, that Katori Hall did something very similar. She signed a deal with Lionsgate and was like, oh, but yeah, so playwrights, Black playwrights, they're not getting put on the way they should be, and y'all need them, so invest in them. So I see that.
And I also want to just name, if I can, Goldie, I just want to name the fact that I feel like dance is more precarious than a lot of other art forms in the way that the infrastructure of our funding works. I was reading this article on Twitter today about, the movie director, Christopher Nolan, who's complaining about all this stuff around streaming. But his latest complaint had to do with this deal that Warner Brothers made with HBO and how that's going to impact the way people get residuals through their union. And the only thing I could think about is dancers don't have any residuals or a union. Like we don't have anything in place that allows us to continue to profit off of something that we've already done. Once it's done, it's done. And it worries me. I understand that our art form has an immediacy to it that some of these other forms do not, but it worries me that we're not training the next generation of people to figure out how to have sustainability because we haven't figured it out, right? So I teach college students and I'm often wondering, what are we training them for? What are we training them to go into this field that is so precarious, right? And I think that I'm not saying I have the solutions. I just think that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but somehow we've bought into the idea that precarity comes with the career. And I'm wondering how we can just completely realign that conversation, because it doesn't feel, in the wake of COVID, everything's precarious. And so if everything can be precarious, then also everything cannot be precarious. You know what I'm saying? We can build new models. I worry for us all. I worry for us. I'm lucky because I do other things besides make dances and dance. So I was able to pivot to income streams when I got laid off from my job. I was able to pivot to some other stuff. But there are people who wanted to just do that, and they're brilliant at it, and they should be allowed to just do that and live and eat.
Okay, Tim, I see you unmuted, so I'm guessing that you have something you want to share. And
yeah, I just want to sort of echo what Melanie was saying. I think that there's one of the silver linings, and there aren't very many of this pandemic, is that the upheaval and the ground has been shattered and we can rebuild in any way we want at this point. So there's opportunity to do things that we may not have had before. And I think it's a matter of sort of just taking space and making change. And we all are, I think, need to engage this. The predominantly white organizations are going to be rebuilding and changing as they rebuild. We keep saying to our members and to my board, we're not going back. You hear people say it all the time, especially white people, sort of going back to normal. When are we going to be back to normal? When are we going to reopen? It's not going to happen. It is never. We are not ever going back to that state. That is gone. That's history. And we have to look forward and we have to build for this new future. And I think so. That's the opportunity here, is to make something radical and make something new.
Let's start the revolution. and you know, we the revolution is the people's revolution. So I definitely want to be mindful of time. This, oh my gosh, all the things, like all of the ideas. This is such a rich conversation. The comment box is on fleek. Oh, I'm old. They probably don't say that anymore. What do they say? Is Liddington? I don't know, but it's happening. And so I want to make sure that we honor and lift up and add, open the comment section for any questions that may be stirring, that, you know, one of the brilliant panelists, that anybody is interested in one of the brilliant panelists talking to. This conversation around honoring the labor outside of the product, honoring the artist outside of the presentation or the season. How do you invest in the longevity of the career and the life of an artist, of a dancer? I'm like, your body, you use your body all the time. There are also these examples that are being shared around organizations that are doing it well. We heard about Y and Dance USA as examples of leadership shifts. And if you guys have any other examples, I see, is it pronounced dance or dank or D-A-N-C? D-A-N-C, that sounds cool. D-A-N-C. Do you want to talk about?
I think they call it dank, I think.
That sounds like a dance itself. Becky, you mentioned D-A-N-C. Do you want to talk about the work that they're doing and when you gave them this shout out as an example?
Melanie actually gave the shout out, so I just want to make sure I uplift that.
Melanie, got you. I'm following y'all. This is like class. I got one class left. I'm like, oh yes, we did it. No, what? Whew, let me breathe. All right, so let's see what they're talking about a little bit in the comment section. And if there are any questions, there are some examples that have been posted around it. If you're looking at inclusive models of how to celebrate and lift up, the Black Dance is a peak organization from Australia. Great. So while we wait on the questions, I know we talked offline a little bit about this idea of how do you vet who you gonna hang with, who you gonna roll with, who you gonna present your work at, and who you're not, right? Because I heard something said earlier in this conversation around how so many people or organizations that actually don't uphold cultural values that you would want to associate with get to appear that they're down by saying, oh, but look at us. We presented little Tommy Ray over here, and Tommy Ray is popular and Black. And so if we presented Tommy Ray, we don't have to say Black Lives Matter because Tommy Ray is Black. And we paid him below what we paid all our white artists, but we sure did present Tommy Ray. So are there recommendations you would make for artists around vetting partnerships? Like, are there any things you say like pay me ×3 or I want this? What should they be looking for in relationships or presentation opportunities or production opportunities?
Well, you know, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm very specific about who I invite into my world. Everyone doesn't get to come inside. It's just how I'm built. So, you know, I what I will say is, I want to just acknowledge one, I don't have the kind of career where I have to depend on funding from other people. And I think that puts me at a distinct advantage in terms of how I'm able to navigate. And so to a certain extent, I think this may be not useful for people whose entire careers are based on that model, which is the dominance of people who are making work in our field. But what I want to say is I think that we have to begin to have very frank conversations about money, and nobody knows what anyone's getting paid for anything. And that's a problem. And so one of the things that I would hope that could come out of all of this change post-COVID, I hate even referring to it as like post George Floyd change because of all of the other people who were murdered prior to George Floyd, and his life was precious, but it's so odd to me that this is the catalyst when we have hundreds of years of George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor's, and the many Black trans lives. So I'm on a tangent. Sorry. Let me get back to what I was going to say. Having frank conversations about money. No one knows what anyone's getting paid. And I think because of that, it's very easy to lowball people for money. And it's very easy to to continue to perpetuate the myth that we're all just so lucky to have these gigs, that we're just lucky to be here. You should be so grateful. And I don't subscribe to that and haven't for a very, very, very long time. You know, I will speak to about myself. I hired a consultant a couple of years ago to help me with fee setting, specifically because I felt like I was lowballing myself and having to negotiate these gigs that I didn't have any frame of reference for. And so, like, it's nerve wracking to even say it out loud, but like, where's the forum where we actually sit down and say, you know what, this is what Kyle Abraham makes for X. This is what Camille Brown makes for X. You know, like, and if Kyle's making that, what is I don't know, what is Crystal Pite making for her stuff? Like, you know, like, when do we have that conversation? You know?
Yes. Hashtag run your receipts. When you go and they want to book, I need to see how you pay everybody on your set. It's public record 9 times out of 10. I need to know how you spent your money, how you spending your coin. Why are you giving me $10 and you spending $55 on your concession? What is that? On merch, on PR? Run me my coin, run those receipts. Yes. I want to give any more input on that one, and then we're gonna wrap up for time. But I want LaTasha.
Yeah. I absolutely loved all of this conversation. And one of the things that I'm honored to be speaking as both the lens of an administrator and an actual contributing artist, but I'm not a normal, whatever that word means, artist in that sense, as in I'm also a veteran, a disabled veteran, and I've also been in the corporate world. So I have a different set of skills. Why does that sound ominous? I have a different set of skills when it comes to advocating for myself and also advocating for the folks that I work with. So for me, transparency is key when it comes to vetting those that I'm going to work with. And it's not necessarily, oh, you don't know who they've been with or who they're working with or what their work has stood for. It's transparency in how we're going to work together. This is what I expect from you. This is what I expect from you. This is how we're going to navigate this space together. If that should change, we're going to have a conversation about that. And in alignment with what Melanie is saying, when are we going to actually have these conversations about money and about how to get access to more money? That starts there. We need to be transparent with each other when we're entering into these partnerships and have that as the quote unquote norm going forward. When you enter into a partnership with someone, you should be asking, what are you getting paid for this? And what is it that you're hoping I will do this work for in relation to what you're getting paid for this? And to actually have the opportunity to negotiate that. Like, there are several artists that I get to work with who I'm grateful to work with. B-Boy Why Not, for example. Yeah, he has a rate, and he has a very well-established rate based on the amazing things that he's done. However, he also is in a position that he wants to work with people to continue to build community. So just because you have an established rate doesn't mean that that's always going to be the thing. Actually make space to have these relationships, develop those reciprocal relationships, have conversations about how to work together if the funding thing is an issue. But also with Ladies of Hip Hop, we've developed a bit of an advocacy or artist toolkit form and platform that we're bringing in young women, especially because it's Ladies of Hip Hop, but it's a model that we would love to share with others. And we're using our experiences, having come up and continuing to navigate these spaces and preparing them for the ways ahead, in the ways that they are existing currently and the ways that they might change, so that they can be ready to pivot. We're helping them soup up their vehicles, not just giving them a little bit of gas here and there. We're helping them soup up their whole vehicle so that they can drive their buses, as Goldie says, all the way through a successful, sustainable career. And that is the thing. We need to continue to model what has worked for us and not be shy about the pathways that we've had to take, so that people can continue to learn from all of the things that we've had to go through in order to get to where we are now.
Yes, I love that. Add your reparations in your fee. I need you to an extra 15% for reparations. And then if I have to deal with passive, uneducated, like people who, as Becky mentioned earlier, the checklist, people who haven't done the work, that's an extra 15% if I have to encounter those people, because that's my fee for facilitation. I'm taking notes, and I may not get hired, but I'm going to go in there unapologetic. These gems are everything. I wanna honor time, because I run my mouth too much. This bus is lit, right? But I wanna give a space for everyone to kind of close out with either just a last thought. Think of a tweet, right? 250 some characters, 240 characters, I don't know, but just a last statement, right? This is what we'll be able to anchor this journey and conversation that we've had with you so far. If it's advice, if it's just who you want to lift up or advocate on behalf of, or if it's just like, I'm out, which is a justifiable tweet, right? I just want to create this space and have each panelist give us your last closing thoughts. And Becky, since the pink is popping, I'm going to go Becky, LaTasha, Melanie, and Tim. Because you got the storyteller voice, Tim. So we'll go Becky, LaTasha, Melanie, and Tim. If you could just give us your closing thoughts, your last words.
Mine will be short in the sake of time. It's just really invest in your communities. That's where what needs to be centered. Invest in those communities.
Sorry, I had to work on the unmute. My tweet is not going to be super short, but it's not going to be lengthy either. Acknowledgement in all aspects, collective commitment to culture, not capitalism, i.e. trends.
I guess I'll just say that in 2021, I want us all to win, but we can't win without work. And just because we're leaving this hellscape of a year behind doesn't mean we leave the work behind.
Well, it's tough to follow all of you. I want to say that that work, this speaking to white listeners or what the audience out there, and to white arts leaders, that white people tend to think of this as a zero-sum game, so they're losing something when they make space. When you make space, or when you give space, or when you empower others, that you are giving up something. And yes, maybe we think of everything in transactional kind of nature and ways, and this is not a transaction. This is a process. And I believe fundamentally that when you give up something, that you get back more than what you give. So as we make space, we create more space. As we back away, there's more potential. And I guess that's my
I love it. I'm going to join in this last kind of tweet. What I've heard, and that's what's resonated with me so much from what has been said, is that we have to be willing to blow this thing up to rebuild it in the best interest of all of us. That it does not serve us, so blow it up. Antonio, you are amazing. You have been holding us down. Shouts out to Antonio. Quinn is in the room, the virtual room. You know what that means. Hey.
Yo, this conversation was so lit. This one was so fire. I'm over here trying to take these quotables that Melanie dropped in. I done missed the last word. Talking about dialogue that doesn't lead to action. It's just, and then I forgot the last word. So somebody got that. Send that to me. Send it.
Exercise.
Class. As I write that down. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing your energy, your voice. You guys are amazing. Amazing. How do I want to say this? I think the gems that everybody dropped today are so accessible, and it felt real to me. So I really appreciate it. And I know there have been a lot of different panel discussions, virtual panels, town halls, all these different things happening and going on. And I thank you for being a part of Soul Define's last panel for the season. And I have a question for you before you go, because I want to acknowledge that we are in a very heavy time of protest where many people are lifting up their voices to affect change. So if you could create your own protest t-shirt, what would it say? What would be on your protest t-shirt? Anybody can body roll, wave into it, whatever you want to do. Jump on in and share. What would be on your protest t-shirt? Becky, you got something?
I mean, the one I have is just, I mean, it's one that already is there. Black Lives Matters. The fact that 55% of white women still don't believe that is ridiculous.
Wow.
So
that needs a panel discussion.
I know. Call me.
Tim, what you thinking?
I've got one similar to Becky. I have this t-shirt, No creo en fronteras. I don't believe in borders.
Okay. Melanie, what you have?
I swear this is not a cop-out, but I am way too wordy for a slogan on a t-shirt. It would probably say, like, hashtag go to the website for the law enforcement. You know,
I'm here for it. Go to the website because you did the work to put it on the website. Now you need to be able to read it. For sure. What you got, Tasha?
I'm discombobulated now. Oh my gosh. Okay. For me, I mean, I'm the subversive one a little bit. So for me, I guess it would be, Black dance is not Black people doing ballet.
Exiting stage left.
I just gotta say that is not subversive. That is that.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I said I wasn't going to do very many panels next year, but bring me back next year so LaTasha and I can just purely talk about the insidiousness of ballet.
Word.
Like it's not. I want to say it's truly not subversive if you know anything about the origins of African diasporic dance. And we need to stop treating it like it's subversive. We need to stop treating it like it's this radical thought.
Yeah.
It's literally not radical. It's historical. What?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I know you're trying to wrap this up.
No.
Nothing gets me fired up like that actual discussion. So
not sorry.
My apologies.
That conversation definitely needs to be had. Goldie, what you got on your shirt? I know my grandma's gonna be mad that I'm saying God. I'm sorry, Grandma.
It's all right. Mine would say not until the indigenous first. I am really focusing right now my energy on following behind the leadership, the example and advocacy for First Nations in this country. I think the example of their leadership in any movement towards racial equity and justice is the must. It cannot, I don't want to be in it unless it centers and follows the example of Indigenous nations. I got a lot of homework, but that's what I'm working on. I got a paper due next Thursday on that.
Wow. Nice. Well, thank you all again. I want to invite you guys to stay on, especially after we close, just for a half a second. But I definitely want to acknowledge that the conversations that we've had this season have been amazing. Thank you to this current panel and previous panelists who have shared their voices and ideas in an effort to bridge the gap and create a bridge towards changing the performing arts. We are sending virtual hugs and dap to all the viewers and wishing you all rest, clarity, and forward progression in your goals. Be sure to follow Dance Place on Instagram and Facebook at Dance Place DC and stay up to date on all of the upcoming programming. I believe what's coming up next is their 40th anniversary Fortitude. This is the Fortitude season at danceplace.org/news/Fortitude to get more information. Be sure to follow everyone on this panel as well. And get into everything that they're doing. Support. And with that, I will say good night. Peace out.
you.